Welcome to Productive Joy with Dr. Christie, where fun meets action.
Hi, friends. Welcome to Productive Joy. We have a wonderful guest with us today, and you are going to love Peggy. I can't wait to introduce her to you. But before I do, if you're not already following this podcast, today's the day. It makes such a difference for us to get discovered by people and for you to get the free shot of B12 that is Productive Joy. So go ahead and follow, subscribe, do that for me so that you can learn about guests like Peggy Sullivan. So today we have with us Peggy Sullivan. Peggy is lots of things. She is an author. She is a recovering busyness addict. She's also a neuroscience expert and a TEDx guest who admits that she's still in recovery from busyness. And she even got busyness recognized as an addiction, which is important. And I think many of us face that addiction. But perhaps most importantly, she is a cat lover. Her cat's name is Oliver. She does also love her son and her husband, but the cat would win if she had a single seat in a rowboat from a sinking ship. So we are very excited about Oliver, and we're very excited about you, Peggy. Welcome to Productive Joy.
Welcome back at you, and I love my Oliver.
So what kind of cat is it?
He's a Siamese dog, and I call him a dog because he weighs 27 pounds. He is ginormous. He has big,
very big
beautiful blue eyes, and he is ginormous. He is so big.
Oh my gosh, Peggy, my cat, I don't have a cat. My dog is only 17 pounds. So that is a lot of fun.
I know.
Oh my gosh, that's kind of funny.
Big boy.
Well, Peggy, I am so excited to have you as a guest today. And I really want my listeners to get super excited. So what would you tell them in like 30 seconds that would make them go, oh my gosh, I can't wait for this episode?
I think our hustle society has put us into this position where we have to do more with less. And today I'm going to teach you how to do that.
Oh my goodness. You're going to teach us how to do more with less? Mic drop. Let's go. Okay. So let's back up though, because Peggy today and Peggy 20 or 30 or 40 years ago is not the same human. And so tell us a little bit about the journey that got you from busyness to success.
Yeah, I spent a fair amount of time in corporate America, and corporate America was very good to me. I had great positions at USA Today, Blue Cross Blue Shield, United Healthcare. The list goes on, and I traveled the world, and I had thousands reporting to me, and life was good. And then life wasn't good. I had a series of wake-up calls that really reminded me that I need to take a pause and figure this thing out because it is really destroying my health, my marriage, and my career. So one day I come home from work and I am exhausted. And so I open the cupboard to find anything I can to eat, and I find a bag of stale pistachio nuts. And I chop them down, and they tasted a little off, but I chomped them down. And then all of a sudden, I feel this pulling on my leg. It was my previous cat, Danzo. And he looks up at me and he's like, Mommy, feed me. I haven't eaten in 10 hours either. So I threw some cat food into his dish, and I grabbed some stale pistachio nuts for myself, and I fell asleep on the couch. And I wake up to this horrific gagging noise, and I look up, and it's my cat throwing up pistachio nuts. And I look down, and I'm like, oh dear, I just ate cat food for dinner. Well, that was the beginning of a series of events.
Oh my goodness.
6 months later, my husband walked out on me, said I wasn't spending enough time with him. I was a single mother, and about 8 months after that, I had a stress-related heart attack because I was trying to be super mom, and I could do it all, and I could be the breadwinner, and I just, get it all in. Just gave up sleeping and eating and healthy things and a lot of things I loved. But hey, and when I had the heart attack, I actually lost out on a job that I was pretty much promised because I had to spend a little time in the hospital and a little time at home nursing myself. So after all those wake up calls, I'm like, you know what? This is not my friend, this thing called busyness. And then it occurred to me people love being busy. Busyness is maybe not the best way to frame it. And I started to think about it as time poverty, just not having time for what you want to do and what's important to you. And so I got obsessed with time poverty and how to cure for that. So over the last 10 years, I've been a research geek and I've researched thousands of people to really understand this thing called time poverty, but more importantly, how to solve it with a process that is easy, actionable, and fun, and just makes you feel at the end of your day like your cup is full. And who doesn't want that at the end of your day?
Wow. Okay. So, Peggy, I think everybody listening can relate to your wake up call moment. Now, I have not ever eaten cat food, but I have certainly fallen asleep on the couch and thought, what happened in the last 10 hours and where am I? I've woken up in hotel rooms and not had any idea what city I was in on that particular day because it was the fourth hotel that week. So I get it. And I'm going to guess that other people that are listening do too. So for all of you listening out there, lean in because Peggy's about to take us on a little journey on how to fix this, right? Because you've written a book called Beyond Busyness. And the premise of the book is that we don't have to live in that, right? Like we don't have to stay there. It's okay to have been there, but you got to recognize it and get out. So, what sorts of things do you help people do to go from falling asleep on the couch with cat food instead of pistachios to actually accomplishing what you're meaning to accomplish?
Yeah, I mean, it took me 10 years to find the balance of the right things that worked. But I can honestly say right now, if people follow the process on average, they get 5 to 7 hours back per week to do the things that give them joy. So, how do we do that? The big question, how? Well, it's as simple as this three-step process. Step one is what I call subtraction, and that's just eliminating low-value activities.
Mm.
Step two is igniting the neuroscience of happiness and the superpowers, because when we're happy, we focus more, we live longer, we have more energy, more likable. And then step three is figuring out what to put on your plate and what to take off your plate in terms of what's valuable to you. What are your values? What's valuable to you? And how can you use those as a filter? And that particular step caused me to research about 18,000 people to find out what core values equate to feeling like, yes, I've had a great day today.
Wow.
And so that's the three-step busy busting process.
Oh my gosh, busy busting process. I like it. Well, and I really like your phrase time poverty because we all get 24 hours in a day, period, right? Like that's not going to change. But how we use those hours and what we're doing with them and what we're producing because of them is really what matters. And I think we often waste a whole lot of time and then you hear people say, I don't have time for that. I don't have time for that. Well, that's because you spent way too much time on this thing over here that you really didn't even need to have any business doing, right? Like somebody else should have been doing it. I love it. I love it. What a great concept. And I know that we can find that in your book, which is pretty great. But now is as good a time as any to ask, how do people find you, Peggy? Like, what's the best way for people to discover a little more Peggy Sullivan?
Yeah, I mean, quite honestly, I love people and I love helping people. And you and I just talked about it. So I'm that person that gives out my website, peggysullivanspeaker.com, and just set up a half an hour with me. I'd love to chat, to get to know your listeners and everybody around you. You can also find me on LinkedIn.
Okay, perfect. Well, Peggy Sullivan, look her up for sure. So, Peggy, you honestly, without meaning to, I think gave us a pretty great definition of productive joy. I always ask my guests because this is my most favorite part is finding out if you had to define it, how you would. So, you can add to the definition that you kind of gave or change it all together. But if I were to ask you, which I am asking now, what's your definition of productive joy? How would you define it?
It has to do with whether I'm doing the things that I value, the things that I so love, and also not doing these low value transactions that are a waste of time. I discovered these four values that equate to quality of life, and one of them is energy management. So for me, I love exercising. I love, looking at what state I'm in the mood elevator and seeing what I can do to at least get halfway up the elevator. We can't always be in great moods, but it's good to stand there and say, I'm grumpy. Don't be grumpy. Nobody likes a grumpy person. And oh, by the way, you're harming yourself.
Yeah.
So the first value is human connection. The first value is energy management. The second is human connection. We're all so busy. COVID's over, but we're in the loneliness epidemic.
Mm.
And the Surgeon General tells us it's equatable to smoking 13 cigarettes a day. That's how bad it is on your basic overall health. So it's really important that we connect with our teams, with the people around us, our family, our friends. I mean, that's the good stuff. And we can't ever, ever not have time for the good stuff. The third value, which I always love to talk about because it reminds me of Dear Dad. And my dad lived to be 88, and he was an immigrant that came over during World War II with nothing but the clothes on his back. And he had a hard life, but he ended up doing really well. And he always used to say to me, Toots, a day without learning something new is a lost opportunity. And when we learn new things, we get resilience. And all of a sudden, we realize that we can do hard things. We can do almost anything. And then the fourth value that I learned about that really equates to quality of life is authenticity. But I've twisted that one because I believe that right now it's great to know what you need and to be true to yourself. But it's also, we're in time where we don't realize that there's a lot of difference of opinions. We're all very, very different in so many ways, but we're better together. When we put all those differences together and tie them up in a neat little bow, we have better solutions, better society, more love in the world, more kindness, more progress. So authenticity in terms of we, not me.
Authenticity in terms of we, not me. I love that. I love the concept of diversity of thought. And I love nothing more than to surround myself with people who think differently than me, because it's easy to find people who agree with you and go, oh, yeah, we're right. And the reality is, I know I'm not most of the time, right? Like I'm just looking for the right answers. So I am so impressed with what you're doing and how clearly you're able to explain it. This is clearly not the first time that you have explained to somebody what you mean when you say beyond busyness and what you're doing. So well done. I want to back up to something that you just glossed over that I think is worth calling out. 18,000 people you talked to in some capacity. Was this a survey? Like, how did you end up talking to 18,000 people? And then what have you done with that information since?
Yeah, it kind of started out when I started speaking about values, and I'm speaking in front of Google. And I'm asking them what their values are. And all of a sudden, I see the people at Google Googling values, right? And they were able to articulate one or two values, and they were usually, family time and hard work. Sometimes it was trust, but they really couldn't put them into words that they could actually use as a filter for yes and no decisions. So that's when I got curious and I just started asking people, what makes you feel full at the end of the day? What makes you feel satisfied? What are the things that you want to know that you accomplished during your life when you're at the end of life? And it's funny how everything changed when they started thinking about quality of life. And so that's how it took years of surveying. I worked in healthcare, so I love data. I'm a data geek. I'm a data junkie. People like watching TV at night. I like researching. It's just me, it's just one of the things that make me me. But I got really curious about that because I couldn't articulate my values. I thought I knew what they were, but I wasn't really sure. And when I restructured them in terms of those 4 core values, energy management, human connection, authenticity, and growth. And then I asked myself every day, did you do all of those? And I started with a report card where I just grade myself 1 through 5. And then the next day, I would spend some time on the one I didn't do well on. I
Mm.
just kept it simple. And as I started doing that, I noticed I got more productive. I got happier. I got healthier. And it became such a filter for doing the right thing at the right time for the right reason.
Well, and you're living out your promises. You're living out the things that you're telling other people to do. You aren't just saying this is what you should do. This is what I do and it works. And that's authenticity also. I love your concept of energy management, human connection, growth, and authenticity as your core values. So is that really what you would recommend as step 1 for the people that are listening who are going, okay, that is all great, Peggy, but I literally do not know where to begin. I feel very stuck. I am overwhelmed. I am in this state of constant stress. I feel like all my nerves are exposed. What would you say to them is your very first step towards getting unbusy?
Yeah, I would say it's subtraction and it's eliminating low value activities. And we do so many that we don't even recognize. The other day, my husband came knocking at my door and I was into an Excel spreadsheet and into data and I was a moving and a grooving and doing all these crazy formulas and having a great time. And then he knocks on the door and I'm like, it's my husband. I gotta take time for him, even though the door was shut. So I let him in and I'm like, dude, what's up? And he looks at me and he says, we have no ketchup. We're going to have burgers tonight with no ketchup. And I thought to myself, okay, well, this is earth shattering. Okay, please leave. You disrupted me. And then I tried to get back into this Excel spreadsheet. And what happened was it took me like 11 minutes to remember the formulas, remember where I was at, and just get into that mindset. And so we have a lot of busy traps and we need to know what they are. And that is why I worked with a bunch of HR people and also industrial psychologists to understand what are the low value activities that keep us from doing and being our best. And it's a whole hodgepodge of things, some of them intuitive and other ones not. 83% of us spend our time, 1/3 of our time in meetings, and yet only 30% of them are productive. So that means the average bear is spending 5 hours in meetings that they don't get value from or they don't give value to. It's like crazy, right? I mean, it's all in the data. And I have a tool, it's on my website called the Busy Barometer, but it's just a quick 3-minute survey and it'll tell you this is your low value transaction. And, maybe you shouldn't be stuck in the email rabbit hole. You wake up in the morning, you look at your email, and then you're stuck in there for 2 hours and you don't get done the heavy lifting. It will help you figure out where to start. And that is the place to start because when you subtract, you have more time for what matters.
Yeah.
So that is the very place to start.
Oh my gosh, yes. So I am an adjunct professor for National Louis University, and I work with first-year master's and doctoral students. And it's my job to help them be better writers, but it's also my job to help them survive this process that whether it's 18 months or 3 years, depending on which one they're doing, while working full-time and being full-time humans, right? And I talk about exactly what you just said, red, yellow, and green zones, and not getting interrupted in your green zone. Your husband came in and asked about ketchup. which was a green zone interruption, right? You were grinding, you had productive joy going, that flow was happening and you were right in it. And then all of a sudden, this interruption derailed you for 11 minutes, which means you're clearly advanced because it usually takes like 20 to get back to where you were, right? So, how great that you have created this system, this very repeatable, very understandable system, and you have given us a very clear first step in looking for the things that are taking away the time that we need to be spending on these things. And our brain doesn't like hard things, right? So we do tend to by nature avoid them. And I know for me, when I was getting my doctorate, one of my professors said, if you find yourself cleaning your toilets instead of writing your paper, you know that you're a dissertation student, right? Like you're getting your doctorate, because our brains go, oh, that's easy, I can do this, I don't want to do the hard thing. So, last question for you before we do some rapid fire. What piece of advice would you have for people to avoid that trap? Because the subtraction thing is one thing, but then we tend to insert things into our lives that feel easier, and I can just do this thing instead of doing the thing we really should. Do you have any magical powers over that?
Yeah, I mean, I actually do. And, when I say I'm a busyness addict in recovery, I mean it because I'm a goal setter, a go-getter. I like to get things done. I'm an overachiever. And so I'm constantly pushing myself. And so I'm constantly reinvesting in this framework, just like a alcoholic would reinvest in the program. You got to live it every day. And so when things aren't going right, I say, look at your subtraction. What are the things you're doing? What habits have you started to get back into that just aren't making? And I think the only thing we really haven't talked about is mojo making. And I believe it is so important. And that is introducing little happiness rituals into your day so that you can fire up your dopamine and your endorphins so that you get energy back, you get focus back, you get clarity back, you're likable, you're not grumpy, everything good when you do a happiness ritual. And for me, it's as simple as eating a piece of dark chocolate and closing my eyes. Will smell it, and just the smell of it will take me out of wherever I'm at, because all of a sudden I'm into the smell of it, and then tasting it and closing my eyes and doing that for 60 seconds and doing that with 2 or 3 pieces. That's like a reset button right then and there. So, there are so many things, but I do believe that this process works best when you do all 3 things. And they're not hard. They're little micro steps, just little micro steps that you can take.
Oh, I love it. And you made it so clear. So thank you, because clear is kind, right? And we now know that there are some things we can do very clearly. You can do subtraction, ignite happiness, and take something off of your plate that's not valuable, right? You can do energy management, human connection, learning new things, or growth and authenticity. And I think everybody on here needs to just go buy Beyond Busyness and get all of Peggy Sullivan in a package. So thank you so much for being a guest, a willing guest on Productive Joy. But really, your mojo making to me is productive joy. You are creating that space where just a piece of dark chocolate can take your entire day and turn it around. So I'm going to have some fun with these rapid fire questions because I think you're going to have great answers. Are you ready?
Yeah, here, let's go. I'm leaning in.
Question number 1. What is your definition of fun?
Anything that lights me up, and almost everything lights me up. I love being outside, exercising, cold plunging, time with my kitty, time with my hubby, a nice meal. The list goes on and on. Small things, though. We think happiness is a destination, a thing, but it's really these little tiny micro moments. And so for me, I turned what brings me joy upside down to micro moments, not destinations or things.
I love that. Such a great answer. Okay. How do you know that you are showing up as your authentic self?
It's so much work being somebody else that it's stressful. And so whenever I'm under a lot of stress, I get back to, am I being authentic and am I being patient with a concept, an idea, something from somebody else that they're suggesting or recommending? Am I just, kind of frustrated because like that won't work, or I don't need that, or I'm not going to try that? And so, for me, it's really about God gave us 2 ears and one mouth for a reason. Listening is good, and there's power, sheer power in listening.
Love that. Okay, how do you channel your best self on your worst days?
I try to take a break and do something really fun. I also have this mantra I pop out of bed with no matter what, no matter where I am, and that is I am enough, I have enough, and I got this. And some days I'll say it 20 times before I put my feet on the ground. But I always come back to that phrase because I have everything I need, and I do have this, and I've done hard things. So, enjoy life. We have such a short period of time on here. You can be meaningful, productive, add value, and still enjoy your life.
Love it. I know I say love it a lot. However, I really do. So, two of my dearest friends and I use that exact phrasing almost daily. We add one more. So, I do enough, I have enough, I am enough, because we're constantly trying to chase something that doesn't even exist. And for what, right? So, I am so grateful that you're helping people figure that out and do things a little differently. It is very powerful stuff. So, final question, going to be a tough one. So, by nature, our brains only hold on to one major idea or concept in a 30-minute period. So, if you had to pick, or if you got to pick the one thing people are really going to hold on to, what do you want them to hold on to today, Peggy?
Yeah, escaping time poverty is nothing more than being intentional in how you spend your time. It's that simple. It's not rocket science. It's micro steps, subtracting, mojo making, and values vibing. Not rocket science. It's doable. So do it. You want to lead a better life, just lean in.
I love it. Well, that's a mic drop moment. I can't say mic drop moment, but that's what it is. So thank you, Peggy, for sharing your brilliance, for being willing to put it in writing for people to be able to grab onto on their own, and for sharing it on Productive Joy. You are an absolutely perfect guest. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Christie.
And for all of our listeners, you know what? They just keep getting more and more interesting and exciting and fun. And so I hope that you were able to grab a nugget or two of wisdom today, because my hope for you is always that you get a free shot of B12 and some ideas that you can use to transform your life, because I think that we are in the business of creating our own productive joy. So today and every day, my hope for you is that you figure out a way to turn fun into action.